on, waiters?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this amazing episode of The Follow Through. Sorry, we're just gonna make some adjustments there. We hope everyone's had a wonderful day so far. And in today's awesome episode, we are gonna go back to some car talk. In the supercar realm, there is this great debate in the Porsche family as to what is the ultimate track car. Is it the GT2 RS or the GT3 RS? The Widowmaker versus the Beast. And the truth is, on the forums, there's a lot of bullshit. And I think hopefully by 2021, we've all come to accept that the internet is no longer the best place to get our best answers. All these forums and chat rooms, I mean, they're filled with just such hearsay and horseshit. You still have people saying, "Oh, the PCCBs are crappy," and I can tell you, people who drive Porsche-equipped PCCB cars or even BMW M cars with carbon ceramic rotors never complain about them. And these are people who drive them at their experience centers, at their racing schools. I mean, they've had these carbon ceramic rotors on their cars for 5, 6, 7 years, with a bunch of Nimrods driving them almost every day and every weekend. So that's my point. There's just a lot of, you have this, the problem with Porsche is you have this much older, waspy kind of generation of people who have their cars, and they're stuck in the 1970s, so they don't really appreciate how the cars have evolved. Now, coming full circle to what's better, a GT2 RS or a GT3 RS, it's a very hard question to answer. And when we go to the forums, the irony is a lot of people go, "No, the GT3 is such a better track car. It's the ultimate da-da-da." And the first thing I ask myself is, do they even have a GT2 RS or a GT3 RS? Have they driven both back to back? Well, I've had the luxury of doing that. So let's break down into it. Which one is better? I'm going to let you decide, because it's going to depend on what you like in life. But I will say this. When you take a GT3 RS and you put a rocket booster behind it, it is freaking amazing, okay? It's like having sex with a girl who all of a sudden squirts on you. And she can cook and clean and is very empathetic to your emotions. I mean, it's amazing, right? You go, wow, this is a whole new experience. So let's first dive into the GT3 RS. It is the benchmark. And what people don't know is the GT2 gets made after the GT3 RS. They take the GT3 RS, they have it run for a couple years, and then when all the goodie upgrades come along for the .2 of every model cycle, then they find ways to extract more power and make the car more nimble in the GT2 RS. And the 991 GT2 RS was unlike anything I've ever driven. So the GT3 RS is the benchmark. It is pound for pound, dollar per dollar, the best supercar, hypercar destroyer you can get. If you can exploit and learn how to drive a GT3 RS to its full potential, you're going to embarrass a lot of people at the racetrack, because the car, in terms of the way it's set up, in terms of the way it drives dynamically, it is unlike anything you will experience. Now, the interesting thing is on the 991 GT3 RS is what a lot of people do not know, or maybe they do know, but we're just going to share it with you, is that it has 80 to about 90% of the same downforce as the Cup car. Now, the biggest difference is that the Cup car doesn't have any air conditioning, it has less seats, doesn't have any, interior padding, and the suspension is really dialed for the racetrack. So when you go over bumps, you're not going to feel and get jolted like you do in the GT cars at Porsche for the road cars. But that hasn't stopped some people from getting, whether it's JRZs or KW, three-way, club sports and whatnot, from getting some hardcore suspensions that are pretty much race car suspensions and really exploiting the car to a whole new potential. But before you get there, remember, learn how to drive the car first. So the GT3 RS, right? You have a 4-liter flat 6 engine, 500 horsepower. By this point, most of you know what it's about. It's got rear steer. How does it drive? On a racetrack, that thing is like a katana. It slices and it slices, and when it sees more meat ahead, it wants to slice. The front end and the rear of the car are so well connected and so well balanced. Aerodynamically, they are in unison. They work wonderfully. My only complaint with the GT3 RS is that when it hits certain bumps, because you see, the problem is we live in America, so people in Europe are going like, what do you mean you bumps on a racetrack? Sorry, guys, dude. America has not had like a boob job or a cosmetic upgrade since it was founded. Our roads are shit, so our racetracks are shit. Our racetracks are very difficult to drive on because the surfaces are not the best, especially out in the West Coast. Now, maybe you go to like Texas and Ohio and Kentucky, you're going to get some really, really good racetracks because people that actually care about the racetracks. But most of the racetracks in the West Coast have a lot of bumps. And like, if you want to go to thermal, you got to pay a couple, mega millions of dollars to join. So you can't use that track. So we don't consider that as a track that we can go to. And in California, really, the tracks are just horrendous for the most part. Except Chuckwalla is great, but it is in the middle of nowhere. And it takes you just as long to get there as it does to go to like Laguna Seca. So you got to plan it wisely. But anyways, if they can find a way to make the car absorb bumps better, it's going to be such a different car because now you're going to be more confident to go full throttle in certain areas where you might not want to because you don't like the way that the car bounces and gets offline. But what makes the GT3 RS so special is that for a car that has 500 horsepower or 520 for the .2s, and realistically even the 991.1s, they did have 520 brake horsepower. Because a lot of them got dynoed and they had much higher amounts of horsepower. Also, a little fun fact, those air inlets on the side, I think above 80 miles an hour, they're sucking in more air, so actually the car's horsepower rating goes up. So let's just stick to the 500 brake horsepower as the baseline, okay? You can exploit all of it. And when you learn how to drive that car, I mean, it is so well balanced. The power to weight ratio is amazing. But the aerodynamics from the front to the back are phenomenal. The brakes are sharp. PDK is phenomenal. So the car, it feels like a katana. Like, you're really going to enjoy driving that car. Like, you're going to embarrass some people. You're going to have guys in McLarens, right? Even 720s who are going to go way faster down the straight, But if you drive that car, you will pass them and they will never catch up to you because you are going to exploit the car's handling characteristics, its braking characteristics, and its weight bias. And once you pass them, they're going to have a much harder time keeping track of you. And I saw that at the track over the weekend with my coach, Chris Hill, who's the head of PRI, which is his racing school, and it'll be coming up soon. And there was a McLaren 720, so we think it was tuned. It was at Bunwillow Raceway. So he was in the pits. That 720 was near the bus stop. Within about, I want to say, a lap and a half, 2 laps, he caught up to that 720 and passed him, and that 720 never got near him ever again. So that's my whole point, is that the car has so much potential to be exploited. You just got to learn how to drive it. Now, going to the GT2 RS, right? I think what's annoying is when I see people go, oh, the GT3 is the better car, screw the GT2. And I come back to that whole idea of like, well, have you driven both? And do you have a GT2 RS? I can tell you from my short stints in the GT2 RS, I was blown away. Take that GT3, strap on like a Saturn V rocket behind it, and that's what you're getting. And a little bit more. What I've noticed on the GT2 RS is that the front end is much lighter, which makes no sense until you drive it. But the front end is lighter than the GT3 RS. The steering is lighter, so you're going to be doing a lot more throttle steering. You're going to be controlling the way you drive that car with your throttle more because of the fact that the front end is lighter. We noticed with the car that we drove, the bump steer was a little aggressive. So basically, when you're, turning and you hit a bump in the track, the initial absorption of the bump is great, but that recoil was so quick and so strong. It was like boom, it was quick. It would upset the car. It wouldn't give you the confidence to kind of smash the pedal down. You had to be careful because it upset us so much that at very high speed, what would happen is the car would get unbalanced, and now you're kind of in a funny situation that you do not want to be. But the brakes, they have the same brakes as the GT3 RS, but I don't know what they've done in the GT2. I don't know if it's, the way that the pedal and the cables are connected, but it's just a little crisper in my opinion. I think at the track, eventually you might not notice it as much, but I don't know. I mean, when I drove it at Willow Springs, I was like, wow, the initial bite was always stronger. But it's not hugely noticeable, but it's something that for me, I noticed. I was really impressed with that. I loved how easy it was to turn the car because once again, the steering wheel was very light. To give you an idea, if you've ever driven a Ferrari 458, it's light in that comparison, but with a Porsche feel. So I love the way that it was so much light. And the rear steer you notice it much more than you do on a .1 GT3 RS. It's a little bit more aggressive. But where the two cars stand out, and even on a .2 GT3 RS, because I've driven those at the Experience Center, a little bit, and I've driven them at the track. To me, I don't know what they've done with the GT2, but aerodynamically, the car feels very different from the GT3 RS's. You definitely feel a lot more aero when you go into turns, which is unique because you'd think that aerodynamically the cars would be very similar since they have the same frame and, they're built on the same chassis. Granted, the GT2, of course, has a bigger engine. It's coming off the Turbo S, and they rework it and do their Porsche voodoo magic. But I don't know what it is, but the car is so aerodynamic. If you're taking a high sweep, a high speed turn where you can go triple digits, the car just feels much more planted than it does than the GT3. And it's not the mechanical grip, it's the aerodynamic grip. You just feel it. It is quite an amazing feeling to sit in that car and to feel that aerodynamic power that they've developed in the car. And I don't know if it's because the underbody of the car is more aerodynamic than the GT3, but you definitely feel it. And it's great. I mean, if I had the money, personally, I'd get a GT2 all day, every day. So impressed with it. I could see why on the 997s, people lean more towards the GT3s because the GT3 and the GT3 RS from the 997, that car is so special, especially the .2. That car, the .2 series and the 997, they really just made those cars so well made. I mean, those cars are so well made that in the hands of the right driver, they're going to be going just as fast as the guys in 991s today, and faster than guys in McLarens today. And you're talking about a platform that's 11 years old now for the .2 997s. So I could see why on that people preferred it, because there was a certain confidence that car inspired, that the 997.2 GT2 RS, it was just, it was a lot more tame than the 996, but it was still scary. But on the 991.2 GT2 RS, it is an amazing car. Now, this is the thing. For what you pay and what you get over the GT3, I think that the price gap doesn't justify the price, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to give you an example. On most racetracks, the GT2 RS is anywhere from about a second and a half to 2 seconds quicker than the GT3 RS, minus the Nürburgring, which has a lot of straightaways, so it kind of, kills it there by 10 seconds. But most tracks that are under 3 miles, the gap isn't that big. So you kind of sit there and you go, okay, like let's say you take Willow Springs, right? We'll take Randy Post's times. He got like a minute 21 and some change for a GT2, and he got, I think it was like a minute 23. And if it's a minute 22, I apologize, but let's just say minute 23 for the GT3 RS. So it's about a 2-second gap in the hands of a pro. 95% of people will not be able to get that type of GT2 RS time. So price per dollar performance, the GT3 I think is the better car. But for me, I really love what they did with the GT2. They took an amazing platform and added what it's needed all along, which is more power and more aero. And I love the engine. I love the delivery of the engine, the performance. The delivery of that performance, the way it is delivered, is phenomenal. It handles all the power so well going to the rear wheels. I've never seen it in a GT2, ever. I don't know what voodoo alien technology they're using, but it delivers 700 horsepower better than like a 458 would, which had 590 horsepower. It just sticks. And the aerodynamics is truly amazing. What makes the GT2, and maybe this is why some people don't like it, what makes it hard to drive at a racetrack is you have to learn how to use all 700 horsepower to truly enjoy that car. And with the GT3 RS, because it's so confidence-inspiring, you get to use all 500 horsepower all the time. And that's why I think, maybe that's why some people lean towards it. But if I had an unlimited budget, I would go for a GT2 RS. Now, for those of you who have GT3s or you're aspiring to get a GT3 RS, dude, get it. Get it, learn how to drive it. You'll be faster than guys in GT2s if you learn how to drive that car and exploit all of its power. Because most people get into the GT2s, like I said, the difficulty is getting the confidence to drive the car fast. So they may never be always at 700 horsepower. They're probably going to be closer to you, like at 500. So they're not exploiting the car's true potential. Now, the fun thing with both cars is once you learn how to drive them, like at certain tracks, like you take Bun Willow in California, you start pushing both cars a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and you go, wow, like, I don't think you can take this. And you do it, and you're like, wow, that felt good. And you give a little bit more, and you give a little bit, like a race car. They have race car-esque DNA qualities. So as you give more power to both cars, they actually perform better. They turn better. They handle the stress of the turn better. They exit better. You don't expect it out of a street car, which is designed for the track, but that gap is getting so narrowed that these cars are really race cars with cushioning and air conditioning and proper seats, a cup holder. I mean, all you really got to do is put some slicks on it, and you'll be going faster than most race cars around a racetrack in these cars because they're that damn good and they're that damn powerful. So what makes both the GT3 and the GT2 just so freaking amazing is the fact that you don't, like, just when you think, like, oh no, like, I shouldn't go any faster, when you do it, the car, like, it's one of those things where it's an inverse relationship. You're going faster, but because you are, the car is designed for those high stresses and high speeds. Both cars' aerodynamics will start playing into your favor. That's what just, for me, blows them away. So, in the end, they're both amazing cars. In my GT3, I've gone faster than guys in GT2s. But sometimes, man, it's just nice having 700 horsepower. I'm not going to lie, because sometimes you will go against a good driver, and you've passed them, and you're coming down the straightaway, and they just, like, they just fly by you. Now you got to work around them again. So that's the thing, is that sometimes it's like you don't need to work as hard in a GT2 because you have all that power, and you just get to fly by people so much easier. You're not working as hard to pass them in the passing zones. But in the end, which one is better? I don't know. It just depends what you like. I think they're both wonderful cars. If I could have both, I would have both. But if I was given the choice of only having one, I would go with the GT2. But if you decide to get a GT3, you're getting an amazing car that is equally, in my opinion, equally as good as the GT2 and more usable and more controllable because it's more confidence inspiring. You get to use all the power all the time, whereas in the GT2, you might not be able to do that all the time until you learn how to drive the car, where you can try to exploit its power all the time. So, having said that, Porsche made two of the best cars out there that compete against cars that are $500,000 to $1 million, and they're kicking their asses, and that's the bottom line. So, to Porsche, I tip my hat, and you guys have done a wonderful job, and I really hope that for the upcoming 992 GT3 RS, I believe that car should have 600 horsepower. Unless if you guys make the car so light and it comes with 550, that's fine. But I really think just because of the way that the performance level of cars have just skyrocketed, it needs it just so that on the straightaway we can kind of pass people a little bit easier. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope you enjoyed that bloody old World War II airplane flying above our wonderful heads today. We hope you enjoyed the scenery, and you know, regardless of what car you get, freaking enjoy it, have fun, because you know what? They're both amazing. Think of it this way. It's like someone telling you, hey man, who would you rather have sex with, Mila Kunis or Giselle? It's a win-win. You can't go wrong with either one, and that's how both cars are. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Have a wonderful day.
What the fuck going on with this? GTI, yeah, that shit go phone. Right at that in my bitch to the tone.